Stoicism is misunderstood. A lot of people think it means you don't care. But what if it means you care so much you don't waste energy reacting to little things? Most people hear the word stoic and they might picture someone cold, unbothered, maybe even emotionally shut down. They think stoicism means feel nothing, say nothing, avoid everything.
So I think the point of it isn't to escape hardship and pain. And I know it's not just about hardship and pain, but it's about how to outgrow that part of you that runs away from those type of emotions, and also achieving some sort of emotional mastery. But really just self-awareness, understanding yourself and your emotions, and having a calm plan to move forward.
Stoicism is misunderstood. A lot of people think it means you don't care. But what if it means you care so much you don't waste energy reacting to little things? Most people hear the word stoic and they might picture someone cold, unbothered, maybe even emotionally shut down. They think stoicism means feel nothing, say nothing, avoid everything. I wouldn't be surprised if over 90% of the people watching this podcast think that stoicism means not feeling anything at all. But that's not stoicism. Stoicism, real stoicism, it's about not feeling less, but about feeling more, understanding more, and deciding to respond better. So today, we're asking a simple question. What is stoicism, really? And why do so many of us get it wrong? To find the answer, we didn't go to a book. We went to where real people are actually talking. Not quoting Marcus Aurelius, not breaking down ancient texts, just someone being honest. You could feel the pain in their words. Basically, they were saying, stop using stoicism as a way to stay numb. Stop pretending that silence means strength. This wasn't someone explaining stoicism or trying to teach the nuances of stoicism to an audience. This was someone surviving with it.
The title of the post is "Holy Fuck, Stop Using Stoicism to Become an Emotionless Punching Bag and Take Action to Solve Problems." And this is how it starts. It says, stop using stoicism to become an emotionless punching bag. The writer's calling out people who are misusing stoicism as a mask, not as a tool for growth, but as a way to suppress emotion, avoid pain, and pretend they're fine when they're not. They say stoicism isn't a pill that you take to not feel pain, and that some people, especially men, adopt stoicism thinking that not feeling equals strength. But real strength isn't about being numb, it's about taking action. Someone yells at you, speak up. You're broke, learn a skill and make more money. You're grieving, get to the root of the pain and don't just bury it. They suggest that stoicism isn't about being indifferent, it's about emotional mastery, about knowing what you feel and then doing something about it. And the post kind of ends with a simple truth. Coping is not the goal, action is. You don't endure pain, you investigate it and then you solve it. And essentially that you take action and stop pretending that you don't feel anything.
I really like this post. It wasn't someone breaking down a quote. This was someone breaking down in real time. Someone venting, someone thinking out loud while at the same time trying to hold it together. It wasn't stoicism as a concept. It was stoicism as a way to deal with all the crap life throws at you. And maybe that's okay. Maybe that's where real stoicism begins. Not in control, but in honesty.
What resonated with me too first was that the anger and passion that I felt the writer had, and the examples to explain what stoicism isn't about and what it is about, and just taking action on what you should and that you can take action on.
It made me think, are they really using stoicism as a way to grow, or are they using stoicism as a way to hide? Let's pause for a second and actually define what we're talking about. Is stoicism really about avoiding emotion, or is it about mastering it?
My name is Kobe Bryant. I'm 17 years old. I wasn't invited to parties or friendly gatherings on the weekend. So on Fridays and Saturdays, I would go to my rec room with my basketball and basically dribble myself to sleep. And I think that was the best thing that could have ever happened to me, because during those lonely hours in the rec room, I discovered the hunger, the motivation, and the desire to be the best possible basketball player that I could be.
When most people hear the word stoic, they picture someone cold, distant, emotionless. But sometimes what looks like cold is actually control. What looks like silence is actually focus.
Okay, so I got a few things from this clip. He talks about like discovering your desires and motivations, and I think that's a big part of Stoicism is like reflecting to have self-awareness and kind of know yourself to align your values. And then another part that really stuck out to me was when he was talking about like even when you win, you should check yourself and control that high. And I kind of relate that to humility and being humble and not being attached to external successes. Like, I think that's some ideas that people can misuse. They might think, or even I did at some point, that Stoicism is telling us not to celebrate or not to be happy about external successes. But to me, I think it's about, like, you should acknowledge your successes, but you just shouldn't let them divert you from your end goal.
I guess that's Kobe in a nutshell, right? He was one of the greatest ever. And he wasn't the greatest ever just because of pure talent. You know, he wasn't out partying. He was alone in the gym, just working over and over and over. And he actually said that was the best thing that ever happened to him. Not because he was numb to it. I'm sure he wanted to be out. I'm sure he wanted to get invited to parties. I'm sure he wanted to hang out with friends and loved ones and to be liked. But Kobe found a hunger in that silence that spoke to him louder than anything else. You know, we often talk about silence like it's a weakness, but sometimes silence is where the strength is built. Kobe wasn't avoiding the world. He was preparing for it. He knew what he wanted. He focused on his end goal to the point where nothing else mattered. And he didn't need the noise. He didn't need the praise. All he cared about was the performance, the ball, the floor, and those empty hours that no one else wanted to do. No one else wanted to like work by themselves. I think Kobe showed you Stoicism in real life in modern day times, and it also shows you the power of it.
There's another part that stood out to me that he said like his parents were always telling him when things are going bad, there's another day. And there's now time for you to move on and go for bigger goals. And I think that's what the core of what Stoicism means to me, or kind of tells me that when things are going bad, you realize what you can and can't control and then take action to better yourself and your environment. So that's not avoiding your emotions. So I guess to loop it back, if Stoicism isn't about avoiding emotions, what is it really about?
Yeah, I love that because when I first saw this clip when I was younger, I thought Kobe was just so obsessed. He was obsessed. And I thought that obsession is what drove him. But it wasn't that he was so obsessed, it's that he wasn't controlled by the feeling. He wasn't controlled by what he was feeling in the moment because he had bigger goals. He wanted to be one of the greatest ever. And he just had that emotional mastery. So I think that's what Stoicism is about. I don't think it's not about not feeling. It's not don't feel. It's don't be controlled by what you feel.
Mm-hmm.
You know, speaking of not being controlled by what you feel, my kids play soccer. And I used to be that dad yelling from the sidelines like every game was the World Cup. And the funny thing is, I didn't even understand the game, but I love competition, I love growth, and I love seeing my kids win. I showed up loud. I thought that energy meant I was supporting them. I thought me yelling and encouraging them was a good thing. I thought it meant I was involved. But looking back, I wasn't helping. The truth is, my passion took over. I wasn't shouting for them, I was shouting through them. Not in a selfish way, but in a reactive way. I was emotionally untrained. Over time, I realized the best thing I could do for them was just to be present, just be there and show my support and watch them play. Now that I stay quiet, I've realized that my silence is more powerful than anything else because they're able to learn from their mistakes. They're able to grow. They're able to understand the game on their own rather than having someone control them with a remote, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you realized that, was it something specific that you like kind of read or heard about Stoicism, or what did you
Oh,
realize exactly?
without going too deep, my kids are different. And I realized that my words affected both of them differently. And actually me thinking, if that was me, what would I want?
Yeah.
So I just learned from my mistakes, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh,
I think it's always important to like kind of take a step back and see the whole picture, whether it's like someone else's perspective or even your own perspective, and like kind of reflect on that. But how Stoicism, I guess, changed my life a bit is it's helped a lot with my anxiety. So for me, why I started learning more about it is because I always heard and seen quotes on social media about focusing on what you can control and accepting what you can't to achieve inner peace. And I realize whenever I get anxious about something, it's because I'm worrying about things that I can't control. So I used to get anxious about a lot of things, and I still do. I used to fear like the worst case scenario in my career or even in my hobbies, like what if the meeting goes bad, or if I'm learning something new, I'm like, what if I don't do well and I suck at golf, for example. And even yesterday when I like have multiple meetings or appointments in a day, I get anxious about like making it to all of them, even though there's like ample time to get everything done. So I took a step back and like tried to see when this happens to me and what I could do about it. And I think like part of it is building confidence helped me overall, but also the first step was being aware of the anxiety and deciding how I could react to it, knowing that it may come up, but how I'll handle my day better, for example. I write down my priorities for the day and like a rough schedule. And I say a rough schedule because before that I had more of like a rigid plan, and that made me anxious. So it's really about like taking that action, like they said in the post, and trying new methods and seeing what works for you.
anxiety is something that we all deal with in different ways. When you look at the famous philosophers that taught Stoicism, they were talking to themselves. They weren't lecturing, they weren't teaching people how to be. They were telling themselves how they should be, how to be virtuous.
Yeah. I think it's easy to misunderstand Stoicism and think that it's about not feeling anything, because that would be the easy way to kind of pretend you're solving your problem.
Why do you think Stoicism is so misunderstood? We can talk about all the good, but what about Kobe's friends and his family members? What about my kids? All of a sudden I stopped yelling at their games. Like, was my presence felt, and then was I all of a sudden absent? Would they think I just stopped caring? Like, I think there are downfalls of Stoicism that can make people easily misunderstand it.
Yeah, I think one part of it is that like it's just easier to think that Stoicism is about suppressing your feelings or kind of pushing it down. And that's an easy solution to what you're actually trying to solve. Like, I mean, I was anxious for years and I didn't do anything about it. I kind of just told myself like to stop being anxious or get over it, but I never really stopped and thought like why it was happening and what I can do. So I think it's because the easier way out is just to think that it's about suppressing your emotions.
So, would you say that Stoicism means do what's hard?
Yeah, like kind of what they said about it's about taking action. Like you actually have to do something about it. You can't just sit there and pretend like you're following it or you're doing what it's telling you. You actually have to go and do something about it yourself.
Let's take a look at some of the comments and see what other people think.
Okay, I found this one. I'll read it out. The reason why accepting that things are out of your control isn't a core part of this is that nothing is actually ever out of your control, period. Do you need to move a mountain? Sure, that's something a lot of people have done before, and it's probably not going to get done overnight. And you're not guaranteed to succeed, but it's not entirely out of your control. Dedicate your life to creating a successful digging business and develop the tools and resources necessary for moving that mountain. Here, I know moving a mountain is like just an extreme example, but this made me think about like, what if you have a dream that's not realistic at all? Like, I think it's important to understand your own nature and limits and kind of accept reality. Like, for example, I don't have a great singing voice. Like, could I learn and practice to improve it? Sure. But if my dream or my goals were to be better than like Lady Gaga, like that's kind of outrageous, right? Sure, I could still pursue getting good at singing, but I should know my limits, or else I'm kind of wasting my time on this rather than working on something that actually makes sense for my life.
I can play devil's advocate here and tell you why I disagree or agree, but I don't think that's the point. I think the point of Stoicism is it's your life. And I think coming to terms with what you can and can't handle, that's what's gonna help you find peace or alleviate your anxiety or decide what goals to pursue. That's one of the beautiful things about Stoicism, is that it teaches you how to master yourself, how to control your thoughts, and how to pursue goals that are actually meaningful to you. So if you realize, I don't really want to be better than Lady Gaga, that's meaningful to you, and it's not on anyone else to decide that. If you decide you want to move a mountain and you might die trying, that's meaningful to you. And I think Stoicism can help you find peace in that.
Yeah, I guess I didn't really see it that way that you just said, because I just jumped straight to rationality. It's like, I guess if moving a mountain, does something for your purpose in life, even if you don't reach that goal, it's fine. Like, it's okay to not reach your goal, just to be aware of the journey and what you learned on the way there.
It's not so much on the way there, it's the journey is the goal. So if you're present in the moment, you realize that what you're doing is worthwhile to you. For example, Kobe Bryant, if we go back to him, Kobe believed in his heart that he wanted to be the greatest basketball player ever. I don't know how much you know about Kobe, but when he was 12 years old, him and his family moved from Italy back to the States, to America. And when Kobe joined a basketball team in the States, an entire season, he didn't score a single point, like 1 point. And for him, that was demoralizing, because he went from being overseas in Italy, one of the best, if not the best players. And then he came back and he just couldn't do anything. And on top of that, Kobe grew up relatively wealthy, right? He had, his family made money. I think his dad played basketball or something before. So it wasn't that he had a drive or a desire to purchase something or to do something. He just wanted to be the best basketball player ever. So he developed, the tools and resources. He developed whatever was necessary to move that mountain. And to be honest, Kobe could have failed at that task. But I don't think our definition of failure and Kobe's definition of failure would have been the same, because that's what Stoicism teaches you. It teaches you that the pursuit is just as important as the end goal. One of my favorite quotes by Marcus Aurelius, without going into detail, basically says you can die right now, and you should live your life as if every breath is a gift. And I think that's how I interpret it. I interpret it like, if you want to be better than Lady Gaga, let's go. And it's, how do you do it? You'll figure it out, because it's all relative anyway. Who decides that, right? Who decides who's the greatest basketball player? Everyone will say Michael Jordan. One person will say Kobe. Another person will say LeBron. Another person might say my son. You have or my daughter. You have no idea. So that's how I interpret it.
I guess like the comment about moving mountains, it's like, sure, it's about the journey, but it's like, how do you know when it's not the right journey for you?
When you decide you don't want to do it anymore. And who can decide that other than you?
Yeah, still have a hard time. I still have a hard time because I'm thinking that for myself, if I wanted to be better than a famous singer, it's like, that's just kind of delusional.
I think you have to be delusional. I think that's hard for a lot of people. But I do think you have to be delusional. I think you have to believe it in your heart of hearts to the point where it's already happened. And the thing about growth is it just happens like that. And all of a sudden everyone thinks it's an overnight success. But look how many hours Kobe was shooting in the gym by himself. Look how many hours Lady Gaga was probably practicing by herself. There's some God-given ability and there's some natural talent mixed in there somewhere. Yes, I believe that for sure. But again, it goes back to choosing the right goals, right? Like, yeah, if you know in your heart of hearts you can't sing, you're probably not going to choose that goal.
Yeah.
And if you choose it, okay, let's go.
Yeah. I'm going to have to ponder about this on my own later. But let's check out another comment.
All right, so the comment that really stood out to me was, Stoicism is like being a really cool-headed captain of a ship. Imagine the sea is life, and sometimes it's calm, but other times it can be stormy and wild. Stoicism teaches you to be like that captain who can't control the sea, but can control how he tries to steer his ship. It means staying calm, not getting too sad or angry, and making good choices no matter what the sea of life is like. It's about being strong inside, like a captain steering through any storm. You know, I love the beach, but the ocean scares the shit out of me. You know, there's no control in it, no predicting it. You can do everything right and still get wrecked. And that's why this comment really stood out to me. I think that's what most people miss. Stoicism isn't about ignoring the storm. It's about becoming the kind of person who can move through it without losing themselves. Stoicism isn't about pretending the sea is calm and everything is good. It's about knowing storms will come. Not cold, not emotionless, just steady. That's the version of Stoicism no one talks about. Not to shut down, but to stay grounded. Not to feel less, but to lead yourself through the chaos in a way that you don't lose focus. I can see why, you know, that mentality might make you look cold or emotionless, but it's the complete opposite because, like I said, the ocean scares the shit out of me. So rather than panicking or losing my faculties, I'm steady, I'm focused, and that focus can be misunderstood.
Yeah, and I guess the same thing applies to kind of feelings like being happy or experiencing pain. It's not saying to not feel those things. You feel them as they come up, but then you kind of calmly figure out how to handle those emotions or what to do with them.
Yeah, I think you just feel them.
Yeah.
Yeah, like good, bad, you just feel them. The problem is we tend to like good and dislike bad, but they all serve its purpose.
I heard someone say once that feelings are not facts.
I've heard that too, but that is true.
So it's like,
do you
can
agree
feel
with that
them.
or disagree?
I agree. They could be facts, but you have to kind of understand if they're either real or not real.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the times they're not facts.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
No one wants to suppress happiness, as far as I know, right? Unless you're a great poker player. No one wants to suppress the quote unquote good emotions. It's always the bad ones that lead you to being irrational or making bad decisions. And I think that's really what Stoicism tries to help you to understand. Marcus Aurelius, you should get that book. You should get Meditations. I love that book. I've probably read it like 7 times already. And every time something else stands out. But death is one of the things that really stand out to me, because I used to be afraid of death. And now I'm like, whatever, I know I'm going to die. I've surrendered to it. And it's because of that book. He talks about different types of prayers. And he says, one man prays to lie with that woman. Another man prays to not lie with that woman. One man prays for his son to never get sick. Another man prays for his courage to deal with his son's sickness. And it just teaches you perspective. And he tells you every night you should say, tomorrow I might wake up and my children are dead. Basically saying like, these things might happen. Don't let it control you. And it's a good way to think. It's a good way to live.
Yeah, it's so interesting hearing from someone like that, or people that like have gone through such hardship but can still think this way. And it makes you think of like little things that happen to you every day, or that seems so horrible when they're not.
Yeah.
Reading
what other people think and just deep diving into the topic. What is Stoicism and why is it so easily misunderstood?
So I think the point of it isn't to escape like hardship and pain. And I know it's not just about hardship and pain, but it's about how to like outgrow that part of you that runs away from those type of emotions, and also achieving like some sort of emotional mastery. But really just self-awareness, understanding yourself and your emotions, and having a calm plan to move forward.
I wonder how many people confuse being calm with being checked out. I used to think Stoicism was about control, about holding it together no matter what. But now I think it's about being present, being fully there. And even if you're silent and you don't say anything at all, I think you can still be fully immersed in that moment. And I'm not perfect. I still don't always get it right. Sometimes I stay quiet when I should speak, and other times I speak just to feel in control when I should just stay quiet. But I'm learning, and I'm learning not to be perfect, just to be more aware. And that's really what Stoicism has helped me understand, that, maybe saying nothing says everything.